Two people look at you, they hear the same words, they see the same face, but one trusts you instantly. The other keeps their distance. That difference often starts with your eyes. We're told eye color is just genetics, random, meaningless. But psychology, evolution, and human behavior say otherwise. Eye color quietly changes how people judge you, how competent you seem, how threatening you feel, and how approachable you appear, before you say a single word. This isn't mysticism. It isn't personality typing. It's perception. And once you understand how it works, you can't unsee it. If you want clear, grounded explanations like this, subscribe. This channel breaks down the hidden systems shaping everyday life. In this video, we'll explain everything your eye color actually does, how it's formed, why it evolved, and how it still affects the way people respond to you today. Let's start with the biggest misunderstanding of all. In this video, we're not ranking eye colors, we're not assigning personalities, and we're not repeating myths. We're breaking down the system. How eye color is formed in the first place, why different colors evolved in different environments, and how the human brain learned to read meaning into something that started as pure biology. By the end, you'll understand one simple idea. Eye color doesn't define who you are, but it strongly shapes how people react to you, often before logic has a chance to catch up. We'll move through each major eye color using the same framework, so patterns become impossible to ignore. And once those patterns click, a lot of everyday interactions suddenly make sense. Let's start with the part almost everyone gets wrong. Most people think eye color works like paint. Blue eyes contain blue pigment. Green eyes contain green pigment. Gray eyes contain gray pigment. That assumption is incorrect. In reality, most human eyes contain only one pigment, melanin. Brown and black eyes have a lot of it. Lighter eyes have very little. Blue, gray, and green eyes don't get their color from pigment at all. They get it from physics. When light enters the eye, it interacts with the structure of the iris. In eyes with low melanin, light scatters instead of being absorbed. Shorter wavelengths bounce back toward the viewer. That's why blue eyes look blue. Not because they are blue, but because they reflect light the same way the sky does. This matters for one reason. The human brain reacts differently to reflected light than it does to absorbed light. Eyes that reflect light appear brighter, more dynamic, and more expressive. Eyes that absorb light appear deeper, steadier, and harder to read. And that single difference is enough to change how we interpret emotion, intent, and trust. Once you understand that, the rest of the system starts to fall into place. Because the original human eye design wasn't light at all. It was dark. Brown and black eyes are often described as common, but biologically, they are the original human configuration. For most of human history, eye protection mattered more than appearance. High melanin levels absorb ultraviolet radiation, reduce glare, and protect sensitive eye tissue from long-term damage. In bright, open environments, this wasn't cosmetic. It was survival. But melanin doesn't just protect vision, it also shapes perception. Because dark eyes absorb light instead of reflecting it, they reveal less visual information. The whites are less contrasted, pupil changes are harder to notice, emotional signals are quieter. As a result, people tend to read dark eyes as stable, grounded, and controlled, but also private. Studies consistently show that individuals with darker eyes are more likely to be perceived as trustworthy and authoritative, especially in first impressions. Not louder, not more aggressive, just solid. This is why people with dark eyes are often seen as leaders even when they don't try to lead. But as humans migrated north into lower light environments, this design stopped being optimal. And a single genetic change quietly altered the way eyes interacted with light and with other people. Blue eyes exist because of a single genetic mutation. Every person with blue eyes on Earth can be traced back to one human who lived roughly 6,000 to 10,000 years ago. Before that mutation, blue eyes didn't exist at all. There is no blue pigment in the human eye. What you're seeing is the absence of melanin. With almost no pigment to absorb light, the iris scatters incoming light outward. Short wavelengths bounce back. Longer wavelengths pass through. The result looks blue. This mutation spread rapidly as humans moved into northern regions with weaker sunlight and longer winters. In low-light environments, less melanin meant more light reaching the retina. Vision improved in dim conditions. But biology wasn't the only force at work. Rarity matters. When a trait is rare, the human brain notices it more, and what stands out often becomes desirable. Over generations, sexual selection amplified the mutation. Blue eyes spread not because they were better everywhere, but because they were noticeable. And that visibility still affects perception today. Blue eyes reflect more light. They show emotional shifts more clearly. Pupil changes are easier to detect. As a result, people often read blue-eyed faces as open, sensitive, or emotionally available, even when they aren't. This doesn't mean blue-eyed people are softer. It means their eyes broadcast more information, and the brain interprets information as honesty. But some eyes take this to an even further extreme. Gray eyes are among the rarest eye colors in the world. They're often mistaken for blue, but they behave very differently. Gray eyes contain even less melanin than blue eyes. Instead of scattering mostly blue wavelengths, they scatter light more evenly across the spectrum. That's why gray eyes look flat, metallic, or fog-like. They don't glow, they don't sparkle, they don't shift dramatically. And that creates a very specific psychological response. Because there's less visible contrast, it's harder to read emotional signals in gray eyes. The brain gets less feedback. As a result, gray-eyed individuals are often perceived as calm, controlled, or emotionally distant, sometimes even intimidating. Not because they are cold, but because their eyes don't give much away. In social situations, this can create authority without effort. People hesitate slightly more. They project seriousness, intelligence, or restraint. But low melanin has trade-offs. Gray eyes are more sensitive to bright light and more vulnerable to long-term UV exposure. Biologically efficient in one environment, costly in another. And that same trade-off applies to perception, which becomes even more pronounced when the balance between pigment and light lands perfectly in the middle. Green eyes are rare for a reason. They require a very precise genetic balance. Too much melanin and the eyes turn brown. Too little and they turn blue or gray. Green eyes sit in a narrow window where moderate melanin combines with a yellowish pigment called lipochrome. When light passes through this combination, the result appears green. Because this balance is unstable, green eyes often change appearance depending on lighting, clothing, or surroundings. The brain interprets that variability as unpredictability. Green eyes don't look the same in every context, and humans are wired to pay attention to things that change. As a result, green eyes are often perceived as intense, mysterious, or emotionally complex. Not magical, not supernatural, just visually rare and neurologically stimulating. The brain assigns meaning because it hasn't seen the pattern often enough to ignore it. But no eye color shifts perception quite as much as the one that never seems to settle. Hazel eyes are often described as changing color. That description isn't wrong, but it's incomplete. Hazel eyes contain intermediate levels of melanin, along with varying amounts of lipochrome. Instead of producing one dominant color, they reflect different tones depending on light, contrast, and surroundings. Green in shadow, gold in sunlight, brown in low contrast. This constant shift sends mixed signals to the brain. Humans are extremely sensitive to facial consistency. When something subtly changes, even if we can't name it, we pay more attention. That's why hazel eyes are often perceived as expressive, emotional, or unpredictable. People feel like they're seeing different versions of the same person, even when nothing about the person has changed. As a result, hazel-eyed individuals often become emotional mirrors. Others project feelings onto them. They read depth, intensity, or volatility where none may exist. Not because hazel eyes are unstable, but because the brain dislikes ambiguity. And when the brain can't lock onto a pattern, it fills in the gaps itself. But there's an even rarer eye color that triggers a more instinctive reaction. Amber eyes are extremely rare in humans. They're often mistaken for light brown or hazel, but they're biologically different. Amber eyes are dominated by lipochrome pigment with very little melanin. This creates a solid golden or copper tone that doesn't shift much with lighting. Interestingly, this coloration appears frequently in predators: wolves, owls, big cats. Not because it's intimidating, but because it signals alertness. The human brain still carries ancient pattern recognition systems. When it sees amber eyes, it often responds with heightened attention. People describe amber-eyed individuals as intense, magnetic, or commanding, even when they're silent. This isn't mysticism, it's subconscious association. A visual pattern linked to watchfulness and focus triggers a subtle sense of presence. And presence alone can change how a room responds to you. But sometimes, eye color doesn't follow the rules at all. Heterochromia occurs when the eyes don't match, either between the two eyes or within a single iris. Scientifically, it's caused by uneven melanin distribution, genetic mosaicism, or changes during early development. Psychologically, it does something powerful. Humans are wired to expect symmetry in faces. Symmetry signals health and predictability. When that symmetry breaks, the brain pays attention. Heterochromia creates immediate memorability. People notice, they remember. But attention can split in two directions. Some feel fascination, others feel discomfort, because the brain doesn't know how to categorize what it's seeing. That uncertainty often leads people to assign personality traits: rebellious, artistic, mysterious, dangerous. Not because heterochromia means any of those things, but because the mind dislikes unresolved patterns. And that brings us to the most important part of the system. Eye color doesn't determine who you are. It determines how much information your eyes broadcast before you say a word. Eyes that absorb light reveal less. Eyes that scatter light reveal more. Eyes that shift confuse the pattern. Eyes that break symmetry demand attention. From an evolutionary perspective, this helped humans make fast judgments. From a modern perspective, it shapes first impressions, trust, attraction, and authority. People don't consciously think about eye color, but their brains react to it instantly. That reaction affects how long they listen, how seriously they take you, and how safe or threatened they feel in your presence. Eye color isn't destiny, it's a filter. And once you understand the filter, you stop being surprised by how people respond to you. Your eye color doesn't define your personality, it doesn't predict your future, and it doesn't limit who you can become. But it does influence the lens through which the world first sees you. Understanding that lens doesn't mean changing yourself. It means navigating perception more intelligently. Because the most powerful advantage isn't controlling how others see you. It's knowing why they see what they see. If you want more clear, grounded explanations of the hidden systems shaping everyday life, subscribe to the channel. New videos break down how biology, psychology, and behavior quietly intersect, without myths, hype, or shortcuts. And next time you make eye contact with someone, ask yourself one question. Are they reacting to you or to the information your eyes just gave them?